Hey everyone, how are you guys doing? Welcome to my channel. So Karlissa got on Instagram Live on Christmas Day. And some people in the chat were asking her where her husband was at. One specific person wanted to know, where's your husband? So Karlissa, started talking about her husband. She said that her husband is a mental health therapist for the government. She said he helps very important people's kids. Also says he got PTSD from the war. So he gets money for that too. She was telling her chat about him, says he's not a janitor, but when she met him...
Stop scrolling, because this one went from petty rumor to full-blown internet embarrassment in record time. 1 minute, the timeline was minding its business, and the next minute, Karlissa popped out swinging like the internet personally disrespected her bloodline. What should have been a non-story turned into a viral spectacle after people started claiming her husband was just a janitor. And Karlissa, oh, she was not having it. Instead of whispering corrections or letting it slide, she clapped back with chest, declaring loud and clear that her husband is a mental health therapist, not the job title Twitter randomly assigned him like it was a community note. And suddenly, the internet froze. Because this wasn't just about a job, this was about disrespect, classism, and people getting way too comfortable lying online. This makes reality TV arguments look like polite brunch debates. Because nothing hits harder than someone correcting the internet when it thinks it's already right. Screenshots flew, comment sections caught fire, and everyone started asking the same thing: how did a random label turn into a full-on character assassination? Buckle up, because the way this rumor started, spread, and exploded says way more about the internet than it does about Karlissa. This whole situation didn't start with facts. It started with audacity. The kind of audacity that only exists online, where people wake up, log in, and decide they're qualified to rewrite someone else's life story before finishing their coffee. Somewhere along the way, a rumor slipped into the timeline claiming that Karlissa's husband was just a janitor, and the internet ran with it like it had been waiting for an excuse. No proof, no sources, just confidence and Wi-Fi. And that's how misinformation moves, not carefully, not thoughtfully, but loudly. A comment here, a slick joke there, and suddenly a random claim becomes what everybody's saying. The internet doesn't ask, is this true? It asks, is this entertaining? And once entertainment wins, accuracy gets evicted. At first, it looked like typical troll behavior. You know the type. People throwing labels around to be slick, dismissive, or disrespectful because it earns them likes and laughs. But what turned this from background noise into a full-blown situation was how quickly that label stuck. The rumor didn't stay in one comment section. It spread across platforms, tone shifting as it went. What started as shade turned into a statement. What turned into a statement got repeated like a fact. That's when Karlissa Saffold Harvey saw it, and instead of letting it slide, she did the one thing the internet hates most: she corrected it loudly. Karlissa didn't sugarcoat anything. She didn't say y'all are mistaken with a smile. She clapped back with irritation, clarity, and that unmistakable energy of someone who is tired of strangers speaking too comfortably about her household. She made it clear her husband is a mental health therapist, not the job title the internet casually assigned him like it was a nickname. The reaction was instant, because suddenly, the internet realized it might have overplayed its hand. What made this moment hit harder wasn't just the correction. It was what the correction exposed. The insult was never really about accuracy. It was about status. Calling someone a janitor wasn't meant to describe. It was meant to diminish. And the second Karlissa said mental health therapist, the energy shifted in the room. Now people wanted credentials. Now people wanted proof. Now people cared about accuracy. Funny how that works. Nobody demanded verification when the rumor was disrespectful. But the moment the truth sounded respectable, suddenly the internet turned into HR. That alone told on everyone involved. Because this was never about what her husband did for a living, it was about people wanting to feel superior by association. Karlissa clocked that immediately. Her clapback wasn't just defensive, it was exposing. She wasn't only protecting her husband's name, She was calling out how casually people belittle others to score cheap points online. And once she did that, the conversation widened fast. Supporters jumped in, applauding her for standing 10 toes down and not letting misinformation breathe. Others tried to downplay it, claiming it wasn't that serious, which is internet language for "I don't like being called out." And then came the backpedalers, people deleting comments, pretending they were misunderstood, or suddenly changing the subject. But the screenshots already existed. The clips were already saved. The damage had already traveled. What really fueled the fire was the deeper implication underneath it all. Because when the internet tries to humiliate someone by assigning them a job title it views as less than, it accidentally reveals its own obsession with hierarchy. The insult wasn't just wrong, it was classist. And Karlissa's response forced people to confront that whether they wanted to or not. This wasn't happening in a vacuum either. Karlissa has been a polarizing figure online for a long time. That meant people already had narratives prepared. So when the rumor appeared, it fit neatly into storylines some folks were eager to believe. The truth, meanwhile, had to fight uphill because truth doesn't spread as fast as shade. And that's how a single sentence spiraled into a trending conversation. What could have stayed a throwaway lie turned into a referendum on respect, credibility, and why the internet feels entitled to define people it doesn't know. Karlissa's clapback didn't calm things down, it ignited debate. Because nothing triggers the internet faster than being corrected publicly. Now the sides were forming. Defenders versus detractors. Facts versus vibes. Respect versus ridicule. The moment Karlissa clapped back, logic should have stepped in and shut everything down. That's how it works in normal life. Someone corrects misinformation, people say "my bad," and everyone moves on. But this is the internet, a place where being wrong is treated like a personal attack and accountability is seen as weakness. So instead of cooling off, the timeline did what it always does when confronted with truth. It got louder. The correction didn't end the conversation. It rebranded it. Now the story wasn't just about a rumor. It became about tone, about attitude, about whether Karlissa was doing too much for defending her husband. Suddenly, the same people who had no problem spreading misinformation were now policing how she responded to it. That's internet gymnastics at its finest. Break the glass, then critique how someone sweeps it up. Clips of Karlissa's response started circulating with dramatic captions and exaggerated summaries. Her words got shortened, stretched, and reframed depending on who was sharing them. Some posts made her sound calm and factual. Others made it seem like she was crashing out over something small. And once again, context became optional because outrage performs better without it. This is where memes entered the chat, and memes don't care about nuance. Suddenly, the entire situation was being joked about, remixed, and turned into punchlines by people who didn't even know what started it. Job titles became props. Screenshots turned into reaction templates. What began as a disrespectful rumor was now treated like entertainment. And that's when things escalated beyond Karlissa herself. People started debating professions like it was a ranking system, as if jobs come with social value points attached. Some tried to backpedal by saying, even if he was a janitor, what's wrong with that? Which would have been a fair point if that had been the energy from the beginning. But timing matters. Saying that after using it as an insult doesn't make you enlightened. It makes you late. Others leaned into the disrespect harder, mocking Karlissa for being pressed and implying she was lying or exaggerating. That's when the situation crossed from messy into malicious. Because now the goal wasn't conversation, it was provocation. People weren't interested in the truth. They were interested in winning imaginary arguments with a woman they didn't know. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Karlissa's visibility made her an easy target. The internet treats public figures like interactive NPCs, expecting them to absorb disrespect quietly for entertainment. The moment she refused to do that, she was labeled emotional, defensive, or bitter. Funny how defending your family only becomes a problem when you're not supposed to have a voice. As the noise grew, other online personalities started chiming in. Some defended her outright, calling out the classism baked into the original rumor. Others took the neutral route, pretending both sides were equally wrong just to avoid taking heat. And a few jumped in purely for clout, reframing the situation in whichever way guaranteed engagement. That's when the story officially outgrew its origin. Now it wasn't just about Karlissa or her husband. It was about respect, class, and the internet's obsession with knocking people down a peg. It became a cultural argument disguised as celebrity gossip. And once that happens, resolution becomes impossible because nobody's actually arguing the same thing anymore. What made this phase especially volatile was how fast people rewrote history. Some claimed Karlissa was overreacting to a harmless joke, conveniently ignoring that the joke was rooted in falsehood and disrespect. Others insisted she should have ignored it, as if silence magically fixes narratives once they're already viral. That's the internet's favorite demand, asking people to be graceful while they're being dragged. The irony. The louder critics got, the more they proved Karlissa's point. If the rumor truly didn't matter, it wouldn't have triggered such aggressive pushback once corrected. The resistance revealed attachment. People didn't want the truth because the lie was more useful. And that's when fatigue started setting in, not resolution. Not accountability, just exhaustion. Supporters began disengaging, tired of repeating the same points to people committed to misunderstanding them. Critics moved the goalposts again, shifting from "it's not true" to "why does it matter?" As if the original lie hadn't mattered enough to spread in the first place. The conversation became circular, messy, and emotionally draining, which is exactly how internet scandals survive longer than they should. Through it all, Karlissa Saffold Harvey remained the focal point, whether she spoke again or not. Her initial clapback echoed louder than anything that followed, and every reaction was measured against it. She had already said her piece. The internet just wasn't ready to let it go. By the end of this stage, the facts were technically clear, but the damage was already baked in. The rumor had been corrected, yet it lived on in screenshots, jokes, and half-remembered versions of the story. That's the internet's favorite trick, acknowledging truth while continuing to circulate the lie. And at that point, one thing became obvious. This wasn't going to end with apologies or understanding. It was heading towards something quieter, colder, and far more lasting. The trending tab moves on. The jokes dry up. The memes get recycled into something else. But the damage, that stays. And once the noise faded, it became painfully obvious that this situation was never really about a job title. It was about how quickly the internet decides who deserves respect and who doesn't. For Karlissa Saffold Harvey, the aftermath didn't come with a dramatic finale. There was no apology tour from the people who spread the rumor. No viral correction post doing the same numbers as the lie. Instead, there was something far more familiar and far more frustrating: selective memory. People remembered the insult. They remembered the clapback. But they conveniently forgot why the clapback happened in the first place. That's how narratives harden. Once a rumor lives long enough, it becomes a reference point. Remember when? Starts showing up in comment sections, stripped of context and padded with exaggeration. It doesn't matter that the claim was false. It doesn't matter that it was corrected. What matters is that it existed long enough to leave a stain. And stains don't care about facts. Karlissa's response, which started as a clear boundary, got rebranded over time. Some people reframed it as defensive, others labeled it extra, and a few tried to turn it into proof of something deeper, as if standing up for your family is suspicious behavior. That's the internet's favorite trick, punishing people for reacting appropriately to inappropriate behavior. The real irony is that the original disrespect quietly proved Karlissa's point. The speed at which people were willing to downgrade her husband for entertainment exposed how normalized that behavior has become online. The clapback didn't create discomfort, it revealed it. And once revealed, people scrambled to reframe the issue so they didn't have to sit with that truth. Behind the scenes, this kind of controversy doesn't just disappear. It changes energy. It alters how people engage. It makes public figures more guarded, more selective, more tired. Every future post gets weighed against potential misinterpretation. Every silence becomes strategic. That's the tax of visibility. You don't just lose privacy. You lose the benefit of being misunderstood quietly. What's especially wild is how this entire situation started with strangers speaking confidently about a life they don't live. No access, no proximity, no responsibility, just entitlement. And once that entitlement gets challenged, the pushback is never about facts, it's about ego. People don't like being corrected by the same person they try to belittle. This moment also exposed something bigger than Karlissa. It highlighted how quickly online spaces turn class into comedy. The fact that janitor was used as an insult at all says more about the speaker than the subject. That part got brushed aside once the story moved on, but it shouldn't have. Because it's a pattern, not a fluke. The internet routinely assigns labels it thinks will embarrass, then hides behind it was just a joke when challenged, and once the attention moved elsewhere. That behavior didn't stop, it just found a new target. The long-term impact of moments like this isn't cancellation or redemption. It's erosion. Trust erodes. Patience erodes. The willingness to explain erodes. And eventually, public figures stop correcting lies altogether because they learn the correction never travels as far as the disrespect. Silence becomes less about grace and more about self-preservation. Karlissa didn't lose this exchange, but she didn't win it either. Because the internet doesn't offer wins. It offers exposure, and exposure always comes with a cost. She set the record straight, but she also learned, once again, how quickly truth gets drowned out when people prefer narratives that flatter their assumptions. The people who spread the rumor didn't face consequences. They never do. They simply moved on, carrying none of the weight they helped create. That imbalance is what keeps this cycle alive. There's no penalty for being wronged, only for being visible. And that's the final takeaway here. This wasn't a scandal. It wasn't an expose. It wasn't even deep. It was a reminder that the internet speaks loudly, listens poorly, and remembers selectively. A reminder that correcting misinformation is treated like aggression when it challenges comfort. And a reminder that in online culture, respect is conditional, temporary, and constantly negotiated. By the time the dust settled, the rumor was technically dead, but its shadow wasn't, and that's how these stories really end. Not with closure, not with accountability, just with people quietly adjusting how much of themselves they're willing to give to an audience that confuses entitlement with opinion. Now, if you're still here, that tells me one thing: this story hit a nerve. And if it made you laugh, shake your head, or whisper the internet really be doing too much, then smash that like button. Like misinformation just tried your family. Don't tap it politely. Hit it with intention. I want to hear from you in the comments, because this situation exposed way more than a rumor. Was Karlissa wrong for clapping back? Or was she doing exactly what anyone would do when strangers start rewriting their household for entertainment? And let's be honest, why was that job title used as an insult in the first place? Say what you really think. This comment section is the after show, and everybody's mic is on. If you're new here, go ahead and subscribe right now. Not later. Not after the next viral mess. Right now. Because scandals don't come with schedules, and this channel stays ready when the internet decides to embarrass itself again. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next breakdown, clapback, or moment where the timeline tells on itself. And remember this, we don't just repeat headlines here. We unpack them. We call out the nonsense, laugh at the audacity, and point out what people conveniently ignore once the jokes stop being funny. If it's messy, uncomfortable, or exposes how wild online culture really is, you'll find it right here. Because today it was a job rumor. Tomorrow it's something bigger. And next week, somebody else is trending for a lie that traveled faster than the truth. This isn't gossip. This isn't outrage farming. This is fame flaws, where the internet's mask slips every single time. Mask slips every single time.